As is known to all, fishing is a leisurely activity. However, fishing for tuna in the sea, the situation is completely different. One must be prepared to face the fierce impact of the waves. It may even face the risk of bankruptcy. However, the corresponding returns are also quite substantial. A 2-meter-long bluefin tuna. It can be sold for $7,524 at the acquirer. Are you tempted by such a job? Don't worry either that the waves will capsize your boat. Hee, as everyone got ready to set off fishing. But unexpectedly, I heard a depressing piece of news. The forecast says there will be a heavy rainstorm today. The wind speed is expected to be as high as 50 miles per hour. The coastal areas are highly likely to be submerged by seawater. It is not difficult to imagine what kind of waves the sea will have. Look, Nick and the others just went out to sea. The bow of the ship was battered in a sorry state by the huge waves. Fortunately, we successfully crossed the most perilous sea area. 9:30 in the morning. Zach also began to go to sea. He is obviously more cautious. Did not choose to take risks at night. Instead, they chose to go fishing when it was relatively safe, although the departure time was a little late. But security has been guaranteed. It is worth mentioning. Today's hot tuna is missing Jarrett. As for the reason, no one knows. It's also uncertain in the absence of one member. Can they catch the tuna they like as they wish? Let's take a look at Taylor on the windmill again. They seem a little unlucky. Marissa's toothbrush accidentally fell into the toilet. When Taylor knew about it, he immediately made a big fuss. It made everyone burst into laughter. Marissa blushed, hurriedly explaining that the toothbrush didn't fall in by accident. Instead, it flew over from the counter. Obviously, Marissa was really anxious, just when everyone was still joking with each other. Taylor's detector suddenly responded. Obviously, Tuna appeared nearby. When the two were observing the stern of the boat, it was found that the fishing line reel suddenly emerged rapidly. It seems that the tuna has bitten the fishhook. After others learned of this news, the face was filled with envy. Neil even made a decisive decision. Go fishing in another place. Head to the waters near Taylor. After they put away the fishing line, increase the speed of the ship to the maximum immediately. It seems as if a rocket has been installed. The speed is astonishing. However, this has also brought consequences. Their windows were shattered by the waves. However, several people on the ship are experienced. The problem was solved very soon. But in the end, the windows still need to be replaced. To prevent any more accidents, they then reduced the speed of the ship. Let's take a look at the windmill again. The two have been fighting for an hour. But Taylor still hasn't pulled the tuna to the surface of the sea. However, modern fishing line wheels are used for fishing. It doesn't consume too much physical strength. On the contrary, it tests skills even more. As long as you persist, victory is in sight. When the tuna finally surfaced, Taylor quickly picked up the fishtail hook beside him. Step forward and firmly control the tuna. Tie the rope immediately after successful control. As the two pulled the tuna onto the boat, this big fat fish has finally been obtained. I really didn't expect that these two people would be so lucky. In such bad weather, it's possible to catch a fish smoothly. The fish was measured to be 106 inches long. When they returned to the port, start selling the tuna in hand immediately. Look at this huge fish. Taylor's heart was filled with anticipation. Hope it can bring rich rewards. It even helped him regain the championship throne. Finally, this fish weighed 502 pounds. The color of the fish meat looks quite nice. It's just that the color is slightly lacking and not so rosy. The core part is quite transparent and of good quality. The fat content, however, seems rather low. Such tuna of average quality. The market price can only be set at $12. Although the unit price is not high, but it eventually earned $6,024 by weight. The captain of the fishing mania, Greg. It was sensed that the wind was gradually strengthening. I'm afraid there will be an extremely heavy rainstorm tonight. If you can't catch tuna in time, I'm afraid I won't be able to sleep well tonight. For this, he contacted the Tuna Network account. But Dave doesn't have any good news either. He is also facing difficulties. But he was luckier. Hardly had the words been spoken when the detector discovered the tuna. After informing Greg, his luck unexpectedly improved as well. The detector then beeped. To be honest, this is rather coincidence. It even makes one wonder if there are any human factors involved. When both sides were waiting for the tuna, Dave was the first to win the favor of the fish. The fishing line was pulled away quickly. Greg was a little down when he learned about it, but this time his fishing rod also began to bend. It really feels like it was deliberately arranged. If it weren't for knowing that tuna is not as easy to tame as dolphins, I even thought this was manipulated by humans. The situations on both sides are just too coincidental, although they were lucky. But the sea doesn't seem willing to make it too easy for them. Continuous surging and pounding. It increases the difficulty of fishing. Only Sandro seems to still enjoy it. However, Billin seems more normal. The complexion is not very good. One wants to catch tuna in this environment. It is always difficult to succeed quickly. It can only be gradually polished by time. However, this also has an advantage. The fishing line won't break easily, as long as the physical strength of the tuna is exhausted. Sooner or later, this fish can be caught on the boat. Hardly had the words been spoken when your fishing line broke. Aren't you slapping me in the face? Well, just look at Greg's side. I believe you won't disappoint me. Billin is fishing. It seems that this fish is rather cunning, constantly floating up and diving down, teasing Billin, who is a fisherman. However, these tricks were of no use, still pulled to the surface. As the harpoon pierces the tuna, this fish is controlled beside the boat and tie it firmly with a fixed rope, looking at the tuna drifting on the sea surface. The three people work together to drag it onto the deck. The fish was measured to be 92 inches long. I didn't expect to catch the fish recently. Not a single one is smaller than 90 inches. When they returned to the port, Local Météorological Bureau forecast, the storm will intensify tonight. The waves will be as high as 13 feet, and it will last until 4 o'clock in the morning. This made the people still at sea extremely anxious, especially the captain of the rocket, Zach. Their ship is small to begin with. Unlike Dave's big ship, it's really hard to deal with the fierce wind and heavy rain. After some discussion, everyone decided to return to Hong Kong and go home. End the fishing trip of the day. After all, life is the most important. But OTT chose to take a risk. It is said that the stronger the wind and waves, the higher the price of fish. When night falls, they found the acquirer. Sell the tuna caught by oneself. After removing the useless parts, the tuna still weighs 365 pounds. Next comes the inspection of the fish meat. The buyer looked at the goods in front of him and said, "Luck doesn't seem very ideal. This fish is too fat. However, the core looks good. The overall color is bright and vivid. Willing to offer the unit price of $15. Let them make a profit of $5,475 US. It seems that they are still favored by Lady Luck. Let's take a look at this warrior, OTT. Their situation is rather difficult, facing such a torrential downpour, afraid that the ship might capsize. But at this moment, the detector suddenly rang. The fishing rod bent in the heavy rain. OTT's risky bet tonight has finally paid off. Just catch this hooked fish. He will become a legend for all. Because the sound of the rain was too noisy. He couldn't wake Tim up. One can only deal with tuna alone. Moreover, he felt hooked like a shark. So it was decided to pull the fish out of the water first. I never expected that this process would take 1.5. Although OTT is a little tired now. But after a long contest, it was found that this was very likely tuna. So I hurried to get the harpoon, so as not to pull the tuna out of the water. It is impossible to subdue it in time. After he regained control of the fishing rod, the fish was pulled out of the water soon. After confirming that it is tuna, shout to Tim immediately. He was even so excited that he swore. When Tim got out of the cabin, OTT has thrust the harpoon into the tuna. This makes Tim seem a little redundant. However, he still played a role. Keep the tuna behind the side of the boat. Tie it firmly with a rope quickly. After successfully catching tuna, Tim also understands why he wasn't woken up. but it is no longer important at the moment. After all, the fish has been successfully pulled onto the boat. After measurement, this fish is as long as 95 inches. It's a nice big fish. Now, they can also have a rest. It seems that it is a wise move for the two to stay. However, there are still certain risks. When the sky clears up and the heavy rain stops, OTT also returned to the port. Start selling one's own tuna. After going through a series of routine procedures, this fish still weighs as much as 418 pounds. The fish meat looks excellent and has a bright color. The fat content is also very rich. It's just that the core part is slightly lacking. If one is also excellent in this aspect, the acquirer will undoubtedly offer a higher unit price. But for now, only $18 can be given. Nevertheless, $7,524 was still earned. After OTT brought the ship to a steady stop, Marissa came over, though I'm not clear about her purpose of coming. But it was learned from them. This unfortunate guy, Nick, the terrain where he is located is not high. It is the area most severely affected by the flood. The seawater accumulated tens of centimeters on the ground. But compared with his family, the situation is still better. The most unfortunate thing is his former home. It has been completely submerged by seawater. It looks like a house built in the sea, especially when he opens the door. It is also full of seawater inside. Witnessing all this, Nick couldn't help crying. All his memories are carried here. They are all his childhood toys. I really feel heartbroken for him. As the sea water recedes from the land, the Tuna Network account has set sail again. Dave was able to catch fish for OTT the night before last. I think it's quite risky. However, his bold behavior. Ultimately, it brought him rewards. Although the rainstorm has stopped now, but the wind and waves on the sea are still not small. Bobby started fishing again with confidence at this time. After all, no one will always be unlucky, especially when there is tuna near the detector. But the waiting time seems rather long. Half an hour has passed. The tuna still hasn't taken the hook. The sudden bending of the fishing rod surprised several people very much. Bobby even thought he couldn't catch any fish. After removing the other fishing rods, Brian was able to pull with full concentration. It was learned that the fish was still over 100 meters away. The rotation speed of the fishing wheel increases with greater force. When Bobby was in control of the fishing boat, Brian kept guiding him to adjust his direction. But the waves are too big to change. This made Brian shout anxiously and loudly. Suddenly, the fishing line broke. Bobby knew at this sound that the tuna had escaped. He was burning with rage immediately. A bunch of words with a mama's weight were exposed and wantonly caused damage on the ship. But this is his ship. If he doesn't care about others, of course he won't. It was Drew who was stunned. It was originally a passionate voyage to sea. The result was unexpected. Look at the unlucky Nick again. He has gone fishing at sea again now. Many items at home were flooded by water. He needs to earn money to go home and repair it. Night fell again and it rained heavily. Even lightning split the night sky. This storm is clearly not over yet. The captain of the tuna net, Dave. Facing the heavy rain, I thought of OTT the day before yesterday. Believe that you can catch fish today, too. I wonder why he is so confident. After all, others are risking their lives. And he was just fishing in the rain. There weren't many waves. Suddenly, their fishing rods bent. They ran onto the deck quickly. Oh dear, Nick has a fish to fish for. And it was so unexpected. The three also rushed onto the deck in a hurry. Start competing with the tuna. It seems that the luck of these two captains is really good. But pull the tuna in this environment. Dave felt that this battle was somewhat difficult. Nick's situation is completely different. The battle went quite smoothly. However, the progress seems to lag behind Dave's. The tuna has been pulled to the surface of the sea. Paul held a harpoon and stabbed the tuna fiercely, although the target was successfully hit. But the tuna is still struggling to escape. This confused the people on the ship a little. If this fish still runs away, the fishing line and the pit of the harpoon are tangled together. It may break if one is not careful. Fortunately, Dave has rich fishing experience. I'm not panicked about this situation. Instead, he slowly pulled the fish to the side of the boat. After Paul refilled the harpoon again, several people quickly tied him to the side of the boat. Look at Nick on the other side again. He is still fighting with the tuna. Watch the tuna surface. Ryan immediately picked up the harpoon and aimed. However, at this moment, the waves suddenly came. It has brought them quite a challenge. Nevertheless, the harpoon still pierced the fish. The three people worked together to control the fish and then tied it up. Look at the tuna at the stern of the boat. Nick was secretly happy in his heart, knowing that one is about to acquire a fortune. As they pulled the fish onto the boat, the fish was measured to be 88 inches long. It was the size that slightly disappointed them. I didn't expect the fish to be so small. Dave, after the tuna cooled down, pulled a fish to his own boat. The fish was measured to be 91 inches long. They hurried back to the port quickly. The tuna was brought ashore immediately, after the purchaser cut off the useless parts. This fish weighs 345 pounds net. If the core and fishtail meat are of superior quality, then they will make a lot of money. The buyer looked at the fish in front of him. It seems that this meat looks very tempting. The fat is also very abundant. The core seems rather ordinary. Only offer a quotation of $17. Let them get $5,865. After Dave left, Nick and others also arrived. It was also Scott's acquisition operation, of course. This person's movements were extremely swift. Quickly remove the useless parts of the tuna. In the end, this fish weighed only 282 pounds. It is much lighter than Dave's one. It seems that the fish meat is not as good as theirs either. The color is slightly dull. The fat part is acceptable. As for the core, it seems rather ordinary. Only $14 can be given. They earned a profit of $3,948. The remuneration is indeed rather meager. After 3 days of fierce competition, the position of the champion has changed hands again. The small shell successfully won this honor. That's all for this episode. Give it a thumbs up, and let's look forward to the next wonderful episode together.